The evening heat clung to Iris's skin as she leaned against the worn edge of the vanity, her reflection catching the golden glow from the setting sun filtering through thin curtains. The house was quiet, save for the faint creak of the old ceiling fan, lazily spinning overhead. She had barely closed the bedroom door behind her when Jake's hand slid around her waist, holding her back against him with a practiced ease that spoke of familiarity rather than hesitation. His breath, warm against her neck, carried the faint scent of beer and spearmint gum, two staples of their hurried rendezvous. There was no need for whispered promises or hesitant touches. They knew the routine. They knew exactly how much time they had. Their clothes lay scattered across the floor, a careless breadcrumb trail leading from the doorway to the bed, where tangled sheets told a story of urgency, of hands too greedy to pause and lips too hungry to wait. There had been no talking, no need for small talk or reassurances. They'd been here before, stealing moments in the gaps Iris's marriage had left wide open. And now, with sweat still cooling on their skin, and her body still humming from release, the silence between them was comfortable in a way that made her heart race faster than any guilt ever could. "Darn sweetheart, you blow my mind," Jake murmured, his voice low and rough in Irie's ear. "Every single time I think it can't possibly top the last," she replied, her breath still uneven. "And yet somehow it always does." Jake's hand drifted down, skimming her skin until his palms settled over her chest, the light pressure sending a soft tremble through her body. "Be straight with me, Irie, better than Oliver, right?" he asked, his tone teasing but expectant. Without missing a beat, she grinned. "Not even close. You're in a whole different league. I just hope you're up for another round before I head out." He was more than ready. By the time Oliver walked through the door, Iris was already tucked into bed. Standing in the doorway, he listened to the soft, rhythmic sound of her breathing, deep and peaceful. With a sigh, he shuffled into the kitchen, eased into one of the worn chairs, and exhaled slowly. "What now?" he muttered to no one. Sleep would have been the smart move, but his mind was still wired from the long hours at the press. For a fleeting second, he thought about waking Iris, maybe hoping for some closeness, something to remind them both they were still in this together. But he knew better. That would only end in frustration. "This shift's eating me alive," he muttered under his breath. When Jake mentioned the night slot and the bump in pay, it felt like an easy choice. Extra cash meant progress. Fixing the house, maybe getting ahead a little. But somehow, the money never lasted, especially with the way Iris went through it like they had a money tree out back. At first, she hadn't minded the change in schedule. Oliver thought they were on the same page. The first check felt like a small victory. More hours, better pay, simple math. Reality, though, didn't care about simple. Sleep became its own battle. Oliver had never been the type to drift off the second his head hit the pillow. He always needed time to unwind after a shift. Working nights only made it worse. By the time he got home, he was too restless to sleep, and before long, he was living like a vampire, wide awake, while the world kept moving without him. The worst part, he barely saw Iris anymore. By the time he crawled out of bed, she was already at work. Weekends were all they had left, and even those felt tense, like they were both waiting for something to snap. Their bed life, once playful and easy, now felt like just another thing to check off the list. And the money, it disappeared as fast as they made it. Whenever they managed to scrape together a little cushion, Iris found a way to spend it. New clothes, little house projects that never quite got finished, random splurges that never made sense. Oliver wanted to bring it up, but weekends were already fragile. The last thing they needed was another fight about money. He loved their house, though. The old Victorian, with its cracked plaster and sagging porch, had been a mess when they bought it, but it had good bones, and Oliver had poured what little time he had into making it theirs. Every repair felt like proof they were building something together. Lately, though, all those dreams felt like they were slipping further and further away. "This can't be it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Another hour ticked by before exhaustion finally started to creep in. He dragged himself into the bedroom and settled into bed beside Iris, careful not to wake her. He slept late, dragging himself out of bed closer to noon than morning. After a quick breakfast, he swapped his sweats for work clothes and wrestled their ancient lawnmower out of the shed. The thick magnolia heat clung to him as he pushed the wheezing machine across the yard, each step a reminder they couldn't afford the riding mower he'd been eyeing for years. On his way to the plant that evening, he stopped at the gas station near work to fill up. While digging out his wallet, the bright colors of the lottery sign caught his attention. "Hey, Millie, throw in a couple lottery tickets," he said to the cashier, forcing a smile. "Figure I'm due for a little luck." "Cutting it close," she said with a grin. "Drawings tomorrow. Hope you hit the jackpot." Oliver tucked the tickets into his wallet and didn't think about them again. The shift that night was rough. Usually, the Hudson Press ran without too much trouble, but tonight was nothing but headaches, one small run after another, each needing new plates, endless cleaning, constant adjustments. One job even called for a rare fifth color, adding even more time to the grind. By the time the shift ended, Oliver felt like he'd been dragged behind the press instead of running it. Still, sleep wouldn't come. Back home, he cracked open a beer and sank into the recliner, the house dark and silent around him. His mind wouldn't shut off, replaying the same loop of worries and regrets. The youngest of 3 kids, Oliver had always been the quiet one, the practical one. His older siblings were outgoing and well-liked, which gave him a bit of cover, but he never really found his own place. Too clumsy for sports, he ended up as the equipment manager for the basketball team instead. Summers were spent hunting with his dad until he landed a job at the print shop at 16, hauling paper and setting up jobs. The physical work packed some muscle onto his frame, maybe enough to catch Iris Tolliver's eye. Iris had been the kind of girl everyone knew, the cheerleader who dated quarterbacks and always seemed a step ahead of life. No one would have guessed she'd end up with a guy like Oliver, but their senior year, something clicked, and they were inseparable after that. Oliver had planned to enroll in community college after graduation, but that plan collapsed when his dad fell off a loading dock and couldn't work anymore. With his dad's paychecks gone, and his mom scrambling to make ends meet with her part-time retail job, Oliver had no choice but to put college aside. Luckily, the print shop kept him on after summer ended, offering him a full-time spot as an apprentice. Iris stuck by him, even as she worked her way through her associate's degree. They got married not long after and scraped together every penny to buy their fixer-upper, a house they were supposed to turn into their dream home. They told themselves they'd wait on kids until they were more stable, convinced they had all the time in the world to chase their dreams. But somewhere along the way, those dreams got buried under bills, exhaustion, and the slow grind of just getting by. How in the world did we end up here? Oliver would wonder late at night. And how do we find our way back? That night, lost in the same loop of questions, he finally gave up and crawled into bed beside Iris. Even in sleep, she was beautiful, and just lying there beside her stirred something deep inside him. He found himself counting down the days until the weekend. The next morning, he slept late again, the bed already empty when he woke up. After a quick breakfast, he gathered his tools and got to work taping off the drywall seams in the back room. Just one more half-finished project in a house full of them. By the time the prep work was done, the afternoon was already slipping away. He made a quick sandwich, packed dinner for work, and grabbed a fast shower before heading back to the plant. That night's shift ran smoother than usual, leaving Oliver only half as wiped out as he usually felt. But even with the easier night, sleep still played hard to get. Not wanting to wake Iris, he flipped on the TV and settled in. Just as he leaned back, the lottery numbers flashed across the screen. On a random impulse, Oliver fished the crumpled lottery tickets out of his wallet, glancing at the numbers with barely any interest, until they all lined up perfectly. His pulse quickened, disbelief crashing over him as he double and triple checked. The numbers didn't change. Hands shaking, he bolted for the bedroom, grabbing Iris's shoulder and shaking her awake. "We won," Oliver shouted. "Iris, we hit the jackpot." Iris groaned, turning her face deeper into the pillow. "Go back to sleep, Oliver." "No, I'm serious," he insisted. "We're rich, millionaires." That got her attention. Wiping the sleep from her eyes, she sat up, rubbing her face. Skeptical but curious, she grabbed her phone and checked the numbers online. Her jaw dropped. Holy smokes! $10 million. They screamed, laughed, and jumped around the bedroom like giddy teenagers, eventually collapsing onto the bed in a breathless, giggling heap. In his excitement, Oliver accidentally tore her nightgown. "That was my favorite one," she shrieked, laughing through her mock outrage. "Don't worry," he grinned. "I'll buy you a whole closet full." That night, they made love with the kind of raw passion and playful awkwardness they hadn't felt in years. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, more connected than they'd been in a long time. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows when Oliver finally woke up, surprised to find Iris still in bed beside him. "Shouldn't you already be at work?" he asked, groggy. She stretched luxuriously and gave him a satisfied smile. "Nope. Already called in and quit. I'm done babysitting cranky old customers." Oliver hesitated, something uneasy stirring in his gut, but decided to let it slide for now. After breakfast, Iris couldn't wait to share their news with her family, but Oliver gently stopped her. "Let's call the lottery office first," he suggested. "We need to make sure everything's official before we start telling people." "Oh, come on, Oliver. We checked the numbers ourselves. It's real." "I just want to talk to someone," he insisted. "Figure out how they pay it out. Monthly checks might be smarter than taking it all at once." Iris rolled her eyes, but for the moment she went along with it. "So, what's the plan today, Mr. Big Bucks?" she teased. Oliver planned to meet with an accountant his dad had trusted for years to get some advice, and despite everything, he still planned to show up for his shift at the plant. "Why bother?" Iris asked, genuinely puzzled. "We never have to work again. I just think we should take it slow," Oliver said cautiously, already sensing they weren't on the same page. The accountant's advice was sobering. Between taxes and the way lottery payouts worked, the final amount they'd actually see would be much smaller than $10 million. Even more concerning, most lottery winners burned through their windfall in just a few years. Oliver left the office with a lot on his mind. He headed straight to work, only to be blindsided the moment he walked in. Sean, his loudest coworker, came barreling toward him with a grin stretching ear to ear. "You lucky fool. Why didn't you tell anyone you hit the jackpot?" Before Oliver could even respond, half the crew swarmed him, firing off questions. Was he quitting? What was he gonna buy first? Was he taking the lump sum or the annuity? Oliver stood there, stunned, his mouth opening and closing without a word. "How do you all know?" Oliver finally asked. Sean clapped him on the back. "Man, it's all over the news. Whole town's talking about you." It was pointless to even try working after that. The manager, realizing the circus wasn't going to die down, sent Oliver home early. As he pulled into the driveway, his stomach dropped. The front yard was crawling with people, neighbors, reporters, distant relatives he hadn't seen in years, and even a local news truck parked at the curb. And right there in the middle of it all was Iris. Dressed to impress, hair curled, makeup flawless, beaming like a pageant queen while charming the reporters. Oliver pushed his way through the crowd, grabbed her arm, and pulled her aside. "What on earth, Iris? We agreed to keep this under wraps until we figured everything out." "I just told my family," she said with a dismissive wave. "I guess word got out." She flashed him an easy smile. "Nothing we can do about it now, so we might as well enjoy it." Before Oliver could get another word in, she was right back in front of the cameras, milking the attention for all it was worth. The crowd finally thinned, but the phone never stopped ringing. Friends, cousins, people Oliver barely knew, all suddenly reaching out. Eventually, he just unplugged it. Slumping onto the couch, he stared at his wife, feeling the weight of what was already slipping out of control. "We should have kept quiet," he said, his voice low. "Relax, Oliver," Iris said breezily. "We're filthy rich now. Money solves everything." "No, it doesn't," Oliver said. "The accountant told me we're not getting anywhere near 10 million, and if we take a lump sum, we lose even more." "Don't be ridiculous," Iris scoffed. "We've got more money than we'll ever need. No point acting like cheapskates." Oliver let out a long breath, too tired to argue. "We'll talk about it later," he muttered, reaching for a beer. In the days that followed, the media frenzy died down, but the flood of visitors didn't. Friends, distant cousins, even complete strangers showed up, all with stories, requests, or ideas on how Oliver and Iris should invest their money. It didn't take long for Oliver to realize winning the lottery had been the easiest part. Underneath all the excitement, a deeper rift was forming. He and Iris couldn't see eye to eye on anything, especially the money. By the time Sunday night rolled around, Oliver was almost relieved to escape back to the factory. At exactly 5:30, Jake Myers's phone rang. "Hey there, Jake." Iris's voice purred, smooth as silk. "What time are you coming by?" Jake's laughter rumbled through the line. "Didn't think you'd still need me now that you're rolling in cash." "Don't be silly," she cooed, her voice dropping to a husky whisper. "My boring husband's at work, and I've got plenty of time for you." That was all the invitation Jake needed. As soon as the call ended, Iris leaned back, a smile tugging at her lips as her mind drifted back to high school. Jake had been her first, her wild love, the one her father couldn't stand. When he got kicked out over pills, her parents made sure they were done for good. Oliver, steady and safe, had been the rebound who stuck. When Oliver casually mentioned Jake was working at the plant, Iris kept that little nugget to herself. At the next company picnic, she made sure to accidentally bump into Jake. From there, it didn't take much to rekindle the old spark. Jake had even been the one who nudged Oliver into taking the night shift, giving them all the alone time they needed. 2 hours later, Iris lay beside Jake, her skin still tingling. "Gosh, I needed that," she sighed. Jake smirked. "What's the matter?" "Hubby not delivering. Not even close. And now he's acting like we've got to guard every penny like it's gonna disappear overnight. He wants to spread the payout over 26 years. Can you believe that?" Jake's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "You know, there's a way you could end up with a whole lot of that money all to yourself, and without having to sneak around." Iris's interest peaked instantly. "Go on." When Oliver clocked in on Monday, the mood at work was different. And not in a good way. The early cheers and backslaps had faded, leaving behind stiff silences and sidelong glances. Conversations died the second he walked into a room. Some coworkers wouldn't even make eye contact, while others shot him looks that ranged from envy to outright hostility. By the time Friday rolled around, things seemed to level out a bit, until his supervisor approached during dinner break, accompanied by a stranger in a suit. "Sorry, Oliver," the supervisor said awkwardly. "This guy needs a word with you." Without a word, the man handed Oliver a thick envelope. "You've been served." Oliver's brow furrowed as he tore it open, only to feel the ground drop out beneath him. His boss shifted uncomfortably. "Looks like divorce papers," he added softly. This can't be right," Oliver stammered, flipping through the documents. Sean, reading over his shoulder, confirmed the worst. "It's all in there." Man, heart pounding, Oliver barely remembered the drive home. When he finally pulled into his driveway, his stomach flipped. Jake's unmistakable red Dodge Ram was parked right in front. Confused, Oliver shoved his key into the lock, only to find it wouldn't turn. He pounded on the door until his phone buzzed in his pocket. Iris's voice came through, cool and composed. "Stop banging on the door, Oliver. I had the locks changed. What on earth is going on?" he demanded. "This is my house too." "Not anymore," she said flatly. "My lawyer says the court will figure that out. Until then, you're not welcome here." Through the window, Oliver could see a heap of garbage bags lined up by the curb, his clothes, tools, and whatever else Iris decided to toss out. His gaze flicked to Jake's truck. "What's Jake's truck doing here?" "Jake." Her voice turned syrup-sweet. "He's just been here for support, helping me through this difficult time." She giggled, low and cruel, and in the background Oliver could hear Jake's laugh echoing hers. Oliver's grip on his phone tightened. "You've got to be kidding me. You should probably leave now," Iris said casually, "unless you want me to call the cops." The line went dead before he could respond. Rage burned in his chest as Oliver stormed into the garage, yanking open a battered old toolbox. His fingers closed around the cold metal of his 9mm pistol, his pulse roaring in his ears. For a long moment, he just stood there, gripping it, until a flicker of movement caught his eye. Across the street, a couple of nosy neighbors were watching through their blinds. Oliver's knuckles went white. Then he swore under his breath and shoved the tool back onto the shelf. "What on earth am I even thinking?" Grabbing the garbage bags full of his stuff, he threw them into the back of his SUV and peeled out of the driveway, tires squealing against the pavement. A few blocks away, the adrenaline wore off and reality hit him square in the chest. With nowhere to go, he sat at a red light, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his hands shook. Finally, he scrolled through his contacts and hit dial. "Hey Mom, can I crash at your place tonight? I'll explain everything when I get there." Seated at his parents' worn kitchen table later that night, Oliver barely touched his coffee as his mom and dad peppered him with concerned questions. His mom's first comment made him sink even lower in his chair. "What did you do to make Iris throw you out like that?" "Nothing," Oliver said, exhausted and defeated. "I swear, everything was fine until the lottery. It's like it flipped a switch in her." His parents exchanged uncertain glances, clearly skeptical, but too polite to press the issue further. They left him to retreat into his old bedroom, the same room he'd slept in as a kid, where the walls still had posters from his teenage years. He spent most of the weekend there, too numb to fully process how his life had unraveled in less than a week. His thoughts spun like a rusted carousel, veering wildly between grief, anger, and disbelief. One minute, he fantasized about getting even. The next, he missed Iris so much it physically hurt. The only relief came when he ran, long, punishing jogs through the park, pounding pavement until the ache in his legs was stronger than the ache in his chest. Saturday afternoon, his phone rang, and for a heartbeat, he thought, hoped, it might be Iris. It wasn't. It was Sean, inviting him to dinner on Sunday. Grateful for any excuse to get out of the house, Oliver accepted without hesitation. Sunday morning, though sleep refused to come, still searching for some kind of clarity, he decided to go to church for the first time in years. It was a mistake. The sermon washed over him like background noise as he sat surrounded by happy couples and smiling families, each one a reminder of everything he'd just lost. The tightness in his chest only got worse. He tried to slip out before anyone noticed, but luck wasn't on his side. He was halfway to the door when Iris' parents spotted him. "You've got some nerve showing your face here after what you did to my daughter." Mr. Tulliver's voice cut through the murmur of the crowd. Oliver froze. "I didn't do anything to Iris. She's the one who kicked me out." "That's not what she told us," Mr. Tulliver sneered. "She said you were running around with some woman while she was at work." Oliver's mouth fell open. "That's a darn lie. I never cheated on her. Not once." The whispers in the sanctuary grew louder, heads turning, eyes narrowing. Oliver could feel the weight of their judgment settling on his shoulders. "She said you'd deny it," Mr. Tulliver said coldly. "Why don't you take your lottery money and buy all the women you want?" Mrs. Tulliver tugged her husband away. but the damage was done. Oliver stood there, humiliated, furious, and powerless as the gossip mill kicked into high gear. That night at dinner, Oliver vented to Sean and Paula, reliving every humiliating detail: Iris's lies, the confrontation at church, and the cold stares that followed him out the door. By the time he was done, he was too drained to even eat. "You need a lawyer, Oliver," Paula said gently. "First thing Monday. You've got money now. Protect yourself." "I don't even know where to start," Oliver admitted. "My uncle's a family attorney," Sean offered. "He's solid." The idea of legal battles made Oliver's stomach churn, but he knew they were right. He took the number. "You coming back to work tomorrow?" Sean asked. "Yeah," Oliver said, though the word felt heavy. "I need the paycheck. Can't live at my parents' house forever." That afternoon, being back at the plant offered a brief sense of normalcy, until his supervisor called him aside. "Figured you'd want to know. Jake Myers quit this morning," the supervisor said uneasily. "Told everyone he's moving in with your wife. Said you'd be paying their bills with your lottery winnings." Oliver's stomach twisted into knots, words spreading fast. The supervisor added, "If you need some personal time, I'd understand." He shook his head. "Let them talk. I'm staying." The plant floor felt colder than usual, every interaction laced with tension. Conversations cut off when he passed. Coworkers muttered under their breath. Someone snickered near the break room, and Oliver could swear he heard his name. Keeping his focus was nearly impossible. At one point, Sean had to physically stop him from loading the wrong plates onto the press. By the end of his shift, Oliver's hands were trembling, and it took every ounce of self-control to keep from sprinting to his SUV. The following morning, Oliver sat across from Sean's uncle, a no-frills attorney whose blunt delivery left no room for false hope. After hearing Oliver's story and skimming the divorce documents, the lawyer leaned back in his chair and laid it out plainly. "No children involved makes this pretty cut and dry. Magnolia is a community property state. Everything you and Iris accumulated during your marriage gets split 50-50. Oliver's stomach churned. "But I bought that ticket myself. She didn't even know about it." "Doesn't matter," the lawyer said with a shrug. "Since you were married when you bought it, it automatically counts as joint property. That's the law." Oliver swallowed hard. "And the house? I put years into fixing that place up." "Doesn't count for much, I'm afraid," the lawyer said. "Unless you two come to your own agreement, the court will most likely order the property sold and the proceeds divided." "This isn't fair." "Fairness doesn't factor into it," the lawyer replied. "The only silver lining is that thanks to the lottery, you'll still walk away with more than most people do after a divorce." Oliver left the office in a daze, the lawyer's parting words bouncing around his skull without fully landing. Just 2 weeks ago, his biggest challenge was adjusting to the night shift. Now he was broke, humiliated, living at his parents' house, and about to watch half of everything, his future included, slip through his fingers. "That darn lottery ruined my life," he muttered under his breath. The next couple of weeks, Oliver stuck to his strict, mind-numbing routine. He worked his shifts, helped with chores at his parents' place, and pushed himself through long, brutal workouts just to burn off frustration and drown out the noise in his head. With nowhere else to go, keeping busy was all he had. Still, no matter how hard he tried to outrun his thoughts, they crept back in during the quiet moments. Eventually, though, a new idea began to take shape, a way to seize control of at least one piece of his life. When he finally laid it all out for Sean and Paula over dinner, they both stared at him, stunned. Sean shook his head slowly. "Are you absolutely sure about this? It's a heck of a choice." "I've thought about it from every angle," Oliver said. "This is the only way I'd walk out of this with my head up." Sean exhaled through his nose. "All right, man. You know I've got your back, but people are gonna think you've lost it." "Maybe I have," Oliver said with a tired smile. That Friday, Oliver and his lawyer sat across a conference table from Iris, her attorney, and Jake, who looked entirely too pleased with himself. Iris's lawyer barely got 2 sentences into his spiel about asset division before Oliver held up a hand to stop him. "Forget all that," Oliver said. "Here's my offer." His lawyer leaned back, arms folded across his chest. "Just so it's on record, I advise my client against this." Oliver slid a single sheet of paper across the table. "Iris, you can have all the lottery money, every cent. All I want is the house and a written statement signed by you, admitting to the affair and everything else you did." Iris's jaw dropped, but before she could say a word, Jake leaned in close, whispering in her ear. Her expression shifted, uncertainty flickering across her face. Her attorney cleared his throat. "We're going to need a few minutes." Oliver sat back as the trio stepped into the hallway, their muffled voices seeping through the thin wall. "You're crazy if you think I'm signing that," Iris's voice rang out. "My dad would lose his mind if he saw it." Jake's voice was calm and coaxing. "So what? We're leaving this dump of a town anyway. Sooner or later, people are going to figure it out. This way, we take the cash and walk." "But the house," she started. "Baby, forget the house," Jake said with a low laugh. "He's basically buying you out for $5 million. We can get a place anywhere we want." The lawyer's voice chimed in, sounding more practical. "The confession itself is irrelevant legally. It's a no-fault divorce state. But financially, this offer is way better than what you'd get if this dragged out in court." Iris's tone shifted, her hesitance melting away. "If all the money's ours, I'm fine with it. Where do I sign?" Back in the conference room, Iris snatched up the pen and signed her name with a flourish, handing the document back with a smug little smile. Oliver took the paper, his face unreadable. "When do I get the keys?" he asked flatly. "We'll pick up the money on Monday," Jake said, grinning like a fool. "We'll be out by Tuesday night." As the two of them left, Jake threw an arm around Iris and loudly declared, "We're set for life, baby," punctuating the announcement by grabbing her backside right there in the hallway. That evening, Oliver handed the signed confession to his mother at the kitchen table. "If you want to know the whole story," he said, "read this." His mom's expression darkened as her eyes traced the lines, lips parting in shock. Every sordid detail was there. Iris's affair with Jake, how she manipulated Oliver into working nights so they could sneak around, all of it spelled out in her own handwriting. "I never would have believed it," his mom whispered, voice trembling. "I thought she loved you." His father scanned the paper in silence, then let out a low breath. "You gave her every penny, all 10 million. Oliver's voice was steady. "You always said your name's the only thing you really own. I just bought mine back." His dad shook his head. "That's a heck of a price for pride." "Worth it," Oliver said without hesitation. That Sunday, Oliver put on his best shirt and slacks and walked into the church just as the sermon was halfway through. Murmurs spread like wildfire as he made his way down the aisle and took a seat in the front pew. When the service ended, he stood and asked the pastor for a moment to speak. "I know there's been a lot of talk about me lately," Oliver said, his voice calm but loud enough to carry. "I wanted to clear a few things up." He held up the signed confession. "This is a statement Iris wrote and signed in front of witnesses. I've posted a copy on the bulletin board if anyone wants to read it after the service, but I'll read it now." He cleared his throat and read aloud. "I, Iris Tolliver Greenwood, admit I am leaving my husband, Oliver Greenwood, for Jake Myers. I engaged in a romantic relationship with Jake while still married to Oliver without his knowledge. The failure of our marriage is entirely my fault. Oliver is in no way to blame." The room fell silent, the only sound the faint rustling of people shifting in their seats. Oliver crossed the room to where Iris's parents sat, pale and motionless. He held the confession out to Mr. Tolliver. "You didn't believe me before. Maybe you'll believe her." Mr. Tolliver's hands trembled as he read, his face draining of color. Mrs. Tolliver's shoulders shook as she quietly sobbed beside him. "Darn that Jake Myers," Mr. Tolliver muttered through clenched teeth. Oliver's voice softened. "Looks like she fooled all of us." Without another word, Oliver turned and walked down the aisle, shoulders back, head high. Monday's shift came and went without much fuss, but the buzz surrounding Oliver's appearance at church the day before hadn't died down. By Tuesday, though, his coworkers had found something even juicier. In the break room, the old TV crackled with the local evening news, and there she was, Iris, practically glowing as she clutched an oversized lottery check, with Jake standing beside her, grinning like he'd won too. The anchor even referred to Jake as her fiancé, sending a fresh wave of whispers rippling through the room. Sean did his best to keep Oliver away from the worst of the gossip, but there was no dodging all of it. Every smirk, every muttered joke about losing his money, and his wife stung like a slap. The only thing keeping him upright was knowing that when his shift ended, he'd be heading back to the one thing Iris hadn't taken from him: the house. His SUV sat packed with the last of his things, and the moment the clock hit the end of his shift, he drove straight there. As promised, Iris had left the keys waiting in the mailbox. The moment he stepped inside, Oliver's stomach twisted. The house was a wreck. Dirty dishes crusted with old food piled in the sink, trash overflowing from every bin, random junk strewn across every surface. "She didn't lift a darn finger since I left," he thought bitterly. Sleep was hard to come by that night. By sunrise, he was in the kitchen, clearing counters and scrubbing cabinets, just to make the place feel halfway livable. As the coffee machine chugged, he flipped open the morning paper, and there it was, the unluckiest lottery winner in Magnolia, complete with a photo of him looking like heck, and a snide retelling of how he'd handed over millions to his cheating wife. Not long after, his phone rang. It was his sister, her tone already sharp. "Tell me that article's a joke," she demanded. "It's not," Oliver said with a sigh. "You moron. We were counting on you to help us with a down payment." Before he could explain, she hung up. "Guess I'm off the Christmas list," he thought, though it hurt more than he cared to admit. The anger was easier to swallow than the guilt. He would have helped if things had been different. The embarrassment, the betrayal, the suffocating loneliness, it all drove Oliver into near total isolation. Aside from work, occasional dinners at Sean's, and quick check-ins with his parents, he spent most of his time tearing into the house. He stripped walls, ripped out old flooring, and rebuilt everything from the ground up, working until his muscles ached and his mind went quiet. The renovation became both therapy and escape, his way of making the place truly his this time. Without Iris's impulse spending draining his account, Oliver found that his paycheck actually stretched a lot further. For the first time in years, money wasn't a constant source of stress. Well-meaning friends and family occasionally tried setting him up on dates, but none led anywhere. It was obvious, to them, and to him, that his heart wasn't open for business. Eventually, they stopped trying. Nearly a year later, Sean called out of the blue. "Hey, can you swing by and give me a hand? My sister's moving to town, and we could use the extra muscle." Oliver agreed without hesitation, and while they loaded furniture into the moving truck, Sean filled him in. "Brooke's been in a rough spot," he said. "Her husband turned out to be a real piece of work. It got physical, bad enough that she finally called the cops and filed for divorce. She's pretty shaken up, so she's starting fresh here." Oliver's jaw tightened. Men like that make me sick. On the way to her new apartment, Oliver frowned at the neighborhood they pulled into. "This isn't exactly the safest part of town." Sean sighed. "It's all she can afford right now. If we had the room, we'd have her stay with us. But it's tight, and with her daughter, it's complicated." When they arrived, Brooke was already there, standing beside a dented moving truck. Sean hugged her, then stooped to greet her daughter, Ava. Oliver stepped forward, offering his hand to Brooke. She barely glanced at him, her handshake weak, her posture guarded. Faint bruises peeked from beneath the edge of her makeup, and Oliver's stomach knotted with quiet anger. Ava, however, was nothing like her mother. The little girl bounced forward, all smiles and confidence. "I'm Ava," she declared. "Are you a good guy?" Oliver smiled down at her. "I try my best." "Okay." She stuck out her hand. "You can be my friend." Oliver shook her tiny hand, grinning. "Deal." The afternoon passed quickly, the three of them unloading boxes and arranging furniture. When the work was done, Brooke offered cold drinks and a soft thank you. "Sorry if Ava's too much," she said quietly. "She's a great kid," Oliver replied. "I like kids." Brooke's smile was faint, but for the first time that day, it felt real. Over the following weeks, Oliver saw Brooke and Ava often, mostly at Sean and Paula's, where family dinners became the norm. Between conversations, Oliver picked up on the details. Brooke was working long shifts at Walmart, while Paula watched Ava alongside her own kids. It didn't take a genius to realize Sean and Paula were helping her out more than they let on. About a month later, Oliver and Sean were replacing some ancient pipes at Oliver's house when Sean's phone rang. His expression darkened immediately. "We need to go," Sean said sharply, hanging up. "What's going on?" Oliver asked. "Brooke just called. Her ex is outside her apartment, watching her through the window." Oliver grabbed his keys without a second thought. On the way, he reached into the toolbox behind his seat and grabbed a heavy pipe wrench, just in case. As they turned the corner onto Brooks Street, they spotted a man banging his fist against her door, shouting words they couldn't quite make out. "Hey!" Oliver's voice rang out, sharp and furious. "Get away from her!" The man spun around, startled, then bolted into the darkness before they could get close enough to grab him. Sean took off after him, but the guy was gone. Oliver knocked gently on the door. "Brooke, it's me and Sean. You're safe now. Open up." After a long pause, the lock clicked and the door opened a crack. Brooke stood there, pale and trembling. "You okay?" Oliver asked softly. "I'm scared, but I'm all right," she whispered. "Where's Ava?" "In her room," Brooke said. Oliver walked down the hall and found Ava curled up under her bed, only the tips of her socks showing. "Hey, kiddo," he said gently. "It's me, Oliver. You're okay now." She crawled out, tears streaking her face, and threw her arms around his neck. Oliver carried her back into the living room, holding her close until her breathing calmed. "Why was my daddy yelling at Mommy?" Ava asked, her voice small and afraid. Oliver knelt beside her, his voice gentle. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I promise you, you and your mom are safe now." Sean rested a hand on Brooke's shoulder. "You're coming to our house tonight. No arguments." Relief flooded Brooke's face. Oliver helped her pack a bag with essentials while Sean called Paula to let her know they were on their way. When they reached the house, Paula was already at the door, arms wide open. She wrapped Brooke in a hug, then knelt down to scoop Ava into her arms. "Guess what, Ava?" Paula said, her smile bright and warm. "We're having a sleepover." Ava's face lit up at the mention of a sleepover, and she ran off to play with Paula's daughters while the adults gathered in the living room. Sean's voice was firm. "You're not going back to that apartment, Brooke. Reed knows where you live now. It's too risky." "I can't just impose on you," Brooke protested. "There's no room at your place, and Reed's probably too scared to come back." "No way," Sean said. "We'll figure something out." Oliver, quiet until then, spoke up. "There's another option." All eyes turned to him. "I've got a big house with more space than I need," Oliver said, a little hesitant. "You and Ava could stay there. There's a spare room with its own bathroom. You can set it up however you like. I work nights, so you'd have plenty of space." He trailed off, worried it sounded awkward. "But if that's weird, I understand." Sean cut in. "That's a great idea if you're okay with it, Oliver." He turned to Brooke. "Oliver's my best friend. I trust him with my life. Reed wouldn't know where to find you. With some gentle nudging from Sean and Paula, Brooke agreed. That night, they packed her things and moved her into Oliver's house. Paula brought her and Ava over for a quick tour. Brooke was grateful, though Ava was less impressed. Staring out the back window, she asked, "Where's your swing set?" Oliver grinned. "No swing set, but there's a park down the street." Ava considered that for a moment, then gave a decisive nod. "Okay, that works." The first few days were awkward. Oliver and Brooke mostly avoided each other during the week, with Oliver working nights and Brooke working days. Weekends were different. On Saturday morning, Oliver woke to the smell of bacon and eggs. He came downstairs to find Brooke and Ava setting the table. "This looks amazing," Oliver said. "You didn't have to do all this. You've been so kind to us," Brooke said with a smile. "It's the least we can do." Ava gave him a serious look. "You snore." Brooke's face went red. "Ava." Oliver just laughed. Guilty as charged. Later, Oliver went to the backyard for his workout, and Ava followed, curious. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Exercising," he said. "What's that?" He grinned. "It's like a game for grown-ups. Wanna try?" She eagerly joined in, though she quickly lost interest, until Oliver remembered an old song. "Head, shoulders, knees, and toes," he sang, and Ava lit up, giggling as they did the moves together. Brooke stepped outside. "Ava, leave Mr. Greenwood alone." "It's fine," Oliver called back. "We're just having fun." From then on, whenever Ava saw Oliver outside, she joined him for her head and shoulders workout. Soon, Brooke joined too. Before long, she was keeping up with Oliver's routine. He couldn't help but notice how strong and confident she looked, something her ex had clearly tried to knock out of her. After their morning workouts, Oliver went for his run while Brooke and Ava made breakfast. Oliver hadn't eaten this well in years. During the week, while Brooke worked and Ava stayed with Paula, Oliver kept busy with house projects, especially fixing up their room to make it more comfortable. He realized, to his surprise, that he liked having them there. The house felt warm and alive again. One night after work, Oliver overheard two coworkers talking in the restroom. "You'll never guess who my brother saw," one said. "Jake Myers in Lexington." "Where?" the other asked. "At some club. He and Iris were flashing cash. Just got back from Edgewater City. My brother says they bought a mansion." Hearing Iris's name hit Oliver harder than he expected. Driving home, old memories and humiliations replayed in his mind. Sleep felt impossible. He settled into his chair, flipping on the TV, hoping to quiet his thoughts. Before long, soft footsteps sounded behind him. Oliver turned to see Ava peeking around the corner. "What are you doing up, kiddo?" "I can't sleep," she said. "Will you read me a story?" Oliver couldn't say no to those wide eyes. "Just one," he said. Ava ran off to grab a book, then climbed into his lap. She handed him a worn Dr. Seuss classic, and Oliver settled in to read, his voice soft and rhythmic. Before he knew it, Ava was fast asleep, curled against him. Morning light woke him. Ava was still tucked beside him, a blanket someone had draped over them during the night. Oliver carefully stood, covered her back up, and headed to the kitchen, where Brooke was already cooking. She smiled. "Looks like you had some company last night." Oliver shrugged. She couldn't sleep. Brooke's smile softened. "She's been through a lot. You were really sweet to her." Oliver shrugged again. "I liked it, actually." Brooke gave him a warm smile, and they settled into an easy rhythm, something that felt a lot like home. About a week later, Sean and Paula hosted a backyard picnic for the whole group. While Brooke played with the kids, Oliver helped Paula set up the picnic table. The sound of children's laughter filled the air, blending with the scent of burgers sizzling on the grill. As they worked, Paula glanced sideways at Oliver. "So," she asked casually, "how's it going with Brooke and Ava living at your place?" "Honestly, it's been great," Oliver said. No trouble at all. Paula gave him a pointed look. And what do you think about Brooke herself? Oliver shrugged, keeping his expression neutral. She's great. A wonderful mom, and a pretty fantastic cook too. That's not what I meant, Paula said with a teasing smile. Have you thought about asking her out? Oliver's eyebrows shot up. A date? I don't know, Paula. Wouldn't that be weird? She's living in my house. I wouldn't want to make her uncomfortable. Maybe you're overthinking it, Paula said. You might be surprised how she feels. Oliver hesitated. I really doubt she sees me that way. Paula's smile only widened. You could be wrong. Just think about it. She called everyone over for dinner, leaving Oliver alone with the idea, one that lingered long after the meal ended. Over the following days, it kept circling his mind. There was no denying he was attracted to Brooke, especially during their morning workouts when she jogged beside him in shorts and a t-shirt. But it wasn't just that. She was easy to talk to, patient with Ava, and had a quiet strength that was nothing like Iris's drama and extravagance. Still, Oliver hesitated. He loved having Brooke and Ava around. The house felt warm and alive again. If he made things awkward and Brooke felt she had to leave, he wouldn't just lose her, he'd lose Ava too. The thought of that was surprisingly painful. That internal debate filled his mind during the drive home from work one evening, until it was shoved aside the moment he saw the unfamiliar car parked at an odd angle in front of the house. The front door was wide open, spilling light across the lawn. Oliver's stomach dropped. Reed. He killed the engine, ran into the garage, and grabbed his pistol from its hiding spot, his pulse thundering in his ears. Chambering around, he crept toward the house, his hands trembling. A shout echoed from inside, followed by Brooke's scream. Peering around the doorframe, Oliver saw a tall, broad-shouldered man, the same man from Brooke's apartment, gripping her shoulders, shaking her violently. Reed. Oliver's chest tightened with fear and fury. Time slowed as he stepped inside, weapon raised. Let her go, Reed. Oliver barked. Reed whipped around, yanking Brooke against him and pulling a revolver from his waistband, pressing it to her temple. Back off, he snarled. For a moment, no one moved. Then Ava appeared in the hallway, her face twisted with fear. Mommy, she shrieked, running toward them. Oliver lunged, scooping her up before she could get too close. Stay right here, Ava, he said firmly, holding her tight as her sobs shook her tiny body. Reed's grip on his own tool tightened, knuckles white, face twitching with rage. Oliver could see the instability in his eyes. The man was spiraling fast. Oliver's mind raced. Somehow, he had to distract Reed. As Ava wriggled in his arms, an idea sparked. Hey, Ava, Oliver said softly, keeping his voice calm. Since we're all awake, how about we do some exercises? Ava sniffled, confused, but gave a hesitant nod. Oliver met Brooke's wide eyes and prayed she caught on. Mommy can do exercises too, he added. It'll be fun. Reed's brow furrowed in confusion, but Oliver ignored him, focusing only on Brooke. Let's start with head and shoulders, Oliver said. Nice and slow. Ava placed her hands on her head, then her shoulders. Brooke mirrored her, though her movements were stiff with fear. Knees to toes, Oliver said. As Brooke bent forward, Oliver fired. The shot struck Reed high in the chest, sending him stumbling back just enough for Brooke to break free and dive to the floor. Reed raised his revolver, but Oliver's second shot went wide. Reed steadied his shaking hand, preparing to fire, but Oliver's third shot struck him square in the forehead. Reed collapsed, his weapon clattering to the floor. Brooke grabbed Ava, holding her so tightly that the little girl squeaked, but neither of them let go. Oliver kicked Reed's tool away, his hands trembling so badly it took 2 tries to dial 911. After hanging up, he called Sean. Get here now, Oliver said, his voice raw. Reed's here, or was. He set his pistol on the mantel and dropped to the floor beside Brooke and Ava, wrapping his arms around both of them. His whole body shook as adrenaline drained away, leaving him spent and terrified by how close they'd all come to disaster. "I thought I lost you," he whispered over and over, tears slipping down his face. That's how the police found them, a shattered family clinging to each other on the floor. 2 years later, on a sunny Saturday, Oliver stood at his grill, flipping burgers while Sean handed him a beer. Paula and Brooke sat on the patio, keeping an eye on the kids, including Ava, who was now happily playing with Sean and Paula's girls on the brand-new swing set Oliver had built. Before the guests arrived, a sudden knock at the door startled Oliver. When he opened it, Iris stood there, older, thinner, her platinum hair streaked with dark roots. "Well, if it isn't my favorite ex," she said, spinning slowly to show off her surgically enhanced figure. "How do I look?" Oliver's expression remained flat. "What do you want, Iris?" She smiled sweetly. "Just thought I'd stop by and see my old flame." "You're looking good, Oliver. Been working out?" He crossed his arms. "What happened to Jake?" Her smile faltered. "Ran off with the last of my money. And the rest of the 10 million. Gone," she admitted with a bitter laugh. "The mansion, the cars, all of it." Oliver's eyes narrowed. "You came back looking for help, didn't you?" Her smile turned hopeful. "I was thinking maybe we could give it another shot." Before Oliver could answer, the door opened and Brooke stepped out, her pregnant belly unmistakable. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" she asked. Oliver slid his arm around her waist. "Just fine," he said, looking straight at Iris. "Thanks for stopping by." With that, he led Brooke inside and shut the door, leaving Iris standing alone on the porch. Later, while grilling, Oliver caught sight of Brooke laughing as Ava squealed with delight on the swing set. His chest filled with warmth, not just for Brooke, but for the life they'd built together. "You called it," Sean said quietly. "I can't believe they blew through all that money. Some people never change," Oliver said, flipping another burger. Sean raised his beer. "You really did hit the jackpot, you know." Oliver smiled, watching Brooke wave at him from across the yard. "Yeah," he said softly. "The real one." The sun had started to dip behind the trees, washing the backyard in gold and amber as Oliver stood at the edge of the deck, a cold beer in hand, and the scent of grilled burgers drifting through the air. Laughter echoed from the swing set, where Ava's delighted squeals rang out every time the swing lifted her higher. Brooke stood nearby, one hand resting on her rounding belly, the other shielding her eyes, as she watched their daughter with a quiet smile. The house, the same house Oliver once thought he'd have to walk away from, felt different now. The cracks had been mended, the peeling paint replaced with fresh coats, but it was more than that. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was a home again, one built with care, patience, and second chances. Oliver wasn't the man he used to be. The bitterness, the weight of betrayal, even the ache of losing what he thought was his future, all of it had faded, piece by piece, until only the important parts were left. Family, peace, a sense of belonging. As he sipped his beer, Brooke glanced over her shoulder, catching his eye with a smile that needed no words. In that quiet exchange, he felt it, the understanding that they had both survived something, and somehow they'd built something stronger in its place. The past was still there, a ghost he didn't bother to chase away, but it no longer haunted him. It was just a story, one that ended right where it should. Home.